Hey everyone, you're with Matthew and Bethany, and you're at the Hub. And we're continuing to explore how you teach yoga to everybody and some of the core principles and insights that guide our approach to being able to teach yoga and asana in particular universally to everybody. So one of the things I've emphasized is that it's going to be mostly and fundamentally dependent on your own yoga practice and your own experiences in the poses, because we want you to adapt sensations and experiences in poses, not just how they look on the outside. You have to get better at teaching from inside to out. Now, as I've emphasized before, this means knowing what you know from a different perspective. So one of the things that starts to happen is you start to realize that you can learn things from sitting, because if you just think and look at my body and go, okay, I've got to make his body be able to do standing poses. If you don't value the sitting position, you're not going to be able to authentically make me feel and move me from my sitting position into the experience of standing poses. So you have to actually recognize some basic things that are happening both in sitting poses and in standing poses and all the different poses. So Bethany, remember how was it you came about when you started to realize that, oh my gosh, it's not just that I need to learn standing poses, but there are things that I can learn from seated poses that help you with standing poses?
I think a lot of it came from being an assistant in a lot of different classes and being able to engage and see a lot of other people's practices, and then bringing that into my own practice and engaging with a sense of curiosity about that and trying to kind of bring in a sense of wonder and let that sort of lead my practice.
And so what I like about what she's saying here is that it's curiosity, and you have to go bring insights to your own practice. These insights, you don't just learn a couple techniques about how to teach me, a sitting person, standing poses. You have to experience and start to see the connections between poses and between different relationships to gravity. So in other words, like I said, you have to take your awareness deeper and then go home and start practicing, going, what is it from this pose to another? Now there's a concept, and I'm an Iyengar yoga teacher, so I'm a certified Iyengar yoga teacher, so I have been studying individual poses and trying to learn about the infinity and dimension in an individual pose instead of making my realization be dependent on being able to do a whole bunch of poses. So there is a really interesting thing that was taught to me by my teacher, Joe Zukovich, a way of thinking about how the poses relate to each other. And this is what Beth and I are going to explore, is that there are poses that are bridges to other poses. There are experiences and core actions that actually go through other poses. So if you can show me some of the principles or core actions as someone that can't stand, then I can start to reach in and explore on the inside what that might look like in a full standing poses. So the concept of a bridging pose, where you're learning one pose, but you've got a whole bunch of other poses that are lingering right around you that you can, as a teacher, help a student have glimpses into. So here's what I mean. What is the relationship? And I want to try to emphasize in this segment, what could a seated pose teach you about a standing pose? Right? Which is, usually that's not how you're learning. I want Bethany to do Dandasana. So, and one of the core bridge poses, and if you don't know this, because Iyengar has been known to say that tadasana is in every pose. Now, right away, as an adaptive yoga student and teacher, that is a big line. That means that I can get access to every pose, or at least part of the experience of every pose, from the actions in tadasana, right? But I can't stand. So now you start to wonder, what can you as a teacher do to explore seated poses in a way that teach you tadasana? So in Dandasana, you lift your chest, hit the inner upper thighs down, stretch out through your inner heels. Staff of life pose is how it translates. Now this staff of life, it's probably your spine, right? I don't know, but let's just go with the fact that it's your spine. But now your legs, instead of being vertical, in a vertical line to your spine, in Dandasana, they're in a perpendicular line to your spine. Now, that's going to have advantages and disadvantages to your pose. Right now, the spine's access to the ground and to the earth is more direct because the sitting bones are part of the base in a way that it's not when it's standing up. And so the actions of lifting up here, hitting the thighs down, and stretching out through the inner heels are the core sensations of Tadasana. Now, I want Bethany to stand up. So now some of the relationships change now, right? So you're trying to figure out where you had a really long base in Dandasana, right? Now you've got a smaller base underneath your spine. Now, I kind of think it's for an adapting yoga and sharing it with everybody, realizing the spine's role in poses is going to be a good strategy. So here, where before you had a perpendicular line, now, as you know some of the instructions in Tadasana, tailbone comes in, top of the thighs hit back, hit down through your heels, lift out of, let's say spread your feet, lift out of your ankles. So there's a down and a rise. Now it's traveling in a straight line, right? And now and you're supposed to be tall like a mountain and grounded like a mountain. So now go down to Dandasana again. Now you don't have the earth underneath your heels, right? But now there's a place for you to start to study and learn the relationship between how you roll your thigh, lift your chest, roll your thighs in and down and stretch out through your heels. How this becomes a whole, as a whole thing, right? So one of the advantages of Dandasana, to teach you something in Tadasana, those of you that can stand, is to try to study the relationship between the inner upper thigh hitting down, the chest lifting, and the extension of awareness out through your heels. Because you're learning how to deepen your groins in Dandasana, or deepen not just your groins, your base, and the energy that's connected to the earth, right? Which is going to get challenged as she goes back to stand up. So stand back up. Now, her connection to the earth is much less. She has to figure out, because our spines are naturally curved in the lumbar spine, she has a break in the connection between the earth and her spine. So the tailbone hits forward, the top of the thighs hit back, and she hits down with the heels and stretches up. But now the depth in the groin and the lift of the chest from Dandasana are going to be really important to show you something when you're standing. And that's one of the ways that Dandasana starts to teach Tadasana. And then Tadasana, now I'm going to ask you for at home, what about Tadasana could teach a seated version of Tadasana called Dandasana? And what about those two poses, what experiences, what sensations are in every pose? And how are they? Because you have to invite me in to more poses in a way that is deeper than just my imagination. You have to help me feel into poses that I cannot do on the outside. Thanks for exploring this with us. Until next time.